Welcome to Meet the Candidates. I'm Arvin Kim, a senior at Walt Whitman High School and your 45th student member of the Board of Education. Before we hear from the candidates, I wanted to sincerely thank you all for the opportunity to serve you in this past year. As I visited every middle and high school, met with hundreds of students across the county in my monthly SMOB advisory meetings, and found ways to engage through social media, your voice has guided my work on the board and the decision-making process for our school system. You called for increased mental health support, so this year we welcomed social workers, wellness centers, and expanded access to therapy services to support student well-being. You advocated for improvements in school lunches, so we've worked with local chefs in a student-led redesign of lunch menus to include new culturally diverse and plant-based recipes. You've highlighted the importance of representation in what we learn, so the board voted to pilot an ethnic studies course, Muslim global experiences course, and Hispanic or Latino American studies course in our schools next year. When we decided on next year's school calendar, we listened to your feedback and added a 5-day break in February, as well as adding a day to winter break. And you wanted to hear directly from our school system, so we are currently implementing a text message update system so you can hear directly from your teachers, your school, and MCPS. On top of these changes, this year has marked a critical moment in our county's history, as we've made historic efforts to address the issues facing our schools. We learned of the findings of a 2-year-long anti-racist audit in our school system, which revealed the long-standing disparities faced by students of color, and we've quickly transitioned to taking steps to address those inequities. We've taken monumental steps towards minimizing the school system's carbon footprint and meeting our goal of reducing greenhouse gas emissions by 100% by 2035. This year, I became the first SMOB to vote on a budget over $3 billion. The board's proposed $3.2 billion operating budget for next school year includes features like free AP and IB exams for all students, $120 million towards increasing staff pay, a school bus tracking app, college application resources, equitable access to courses online, free dual enrollment at Montgomery College, and increased security in schools. We have also embarked on a historic effort to create diverse and equitable school boundaries. As we begin the process of setting the boundary for the new Woodward High School, we look to study a scope of unprecedented size to address overcrowding and create diverse school communities, the first of a series of upcoming MCPS boundary studies for new schools and renovations. Another powerful way to ensure that where you live or what you look like does not determine the quality of your education. But make no mistake, our work is far from over. In the final months of my term, I continue to push for meaningful progress in our schools. Up next on the agenda, revamping the way MCPS communicates with students, changing the way we teach about civic engagement and hold in-school voter registration drives, revise MCPS's homework policy, and create time in the school day dedicated to student wellness. I thank you again for the opportunity to serve as your SMOB. It has been an honor to fight for you and represent students in this critical moment in our county's history. As I've seen our voices drive real change in our schools, I've been left more optimistic than ever about the future of MCPS. Now, let's meet the candidates for the 46th student member of the board. Today, you will have a moment to learn about each of our 2 candidates who are seeking your vote to serve as the 46th student member of the Board of Education. The 2 candidates elected at the February 15th, 2023 SMOB Nominating Convention are Mr. Sami Saeed and Mr. Yoseph Zerihun. In a moment, I'll briefly introduce each candidate, and then they will share their positions on a few key issues important to students across Montgomery County. This program will help you be best prepared to vote in the SMOB election on April 19th, 2023. Let's begin. Mr. Sami Saeed is a grade 11 student at Richard Montgomery High School. For as long as he can remember, Sami has seen crucial changes that were promised to students but went unfulfilled. He has now taken it upon himself to step up and become the leader in creating the positive change our county needs. Sami currently serves on the SMOB Advisory Cabinet, is the SGA president at his school, is an intern for board member Lynn Harris, and is a member of the Montgomery County Commission on Youth and Children. Sami also possesses strong communication skills, winning the Montgomery County Public Forum Debate League last year and writing articles for school and county-wide student newspapers. He wants to emphasize that as a student, just like all of you, he will work tirelessly to bring every student's unique perspective to the Board of Education. Our second candidate is Mr. Yoseph Zerihun. an 11th grade student at Springbrook High School. Beginning from 6th grade, he has been passionate about advocacy and giving a voice to those who don't have one. He is currently the language coordinator in his school's SGA, and in this capacity, he helps coordinate SGA-related events and activities while ensuring that these events are equitable to all students. Yoseph also serves as vice president of his school's National Honor Society and French Honor Society, and is captain of his school's debate and mock trial teams. Yoseph is seeking to bring a voice to all MCPS students and to ensure that no MCPS student feels helpless in their journey in this county. Welcome to both candidates. Today, we have a series of questions to ask and learn more about each of the candidates and their vision for their work in this position. I'll ask each candidate to keep their responses to 1 minute so we have time to discuss multiple issues. Sami will begin with you and alternate who answers first as we go on. Our first question. As the SMOB, you represent the 160,000 students of MCPS on the Board of Education. What steps will you take to ensure that your work on the board truly represents the changes that students want to see?
My action plan to ensure that every single student in Montgomery County Public Schools is represented is mainly through surveys and polls. I would like to survey students in class about various topics such as mental health, the amount of work students are getting, and the quality of their school lunches. By doing this, I can ensure that students' voices are directly represented when speaking to the Board of Education about these issues. I also want to introduce polls. Before every single decision MCPS makes, I want to poll students on their opinion about that decision. Then I would like to bring that information to the Board of Education and present if students agree or disagree with these issues. That way, we can ensure that I'm not speaking for students, but I'm allowing students to speak for themselves. So through introducing surveys and polls in classes, I can ensure I'm representing every single student in Montgomery County.
Thank you, Sami. Next, let's hear from Yoseph.
I want to ensure the representation of all MCPS students through my SMOB Advisory Cabinet. I want to extend on what past SMOBs have done by keeping their SMOB Advisory Cabinet and making sure it's representative of all students. So I seek to ensure that there are representatives from each middle and high school on my SMOB Advisory Cabinet. I also seek to make sure that I get reports at least once a month from each and every school and each and every cluster of schools to ensure that I'm informed on the issues going on at each school and to ensure that each student at each school is able to give me proper input to best represent all MCPS students.
Thank you, Yoseph. Our next question asks about some of those issues that you'll be representing students on. Public schools across the nation are navigating both unprecedented obstacles and historic challenges. Our school system is no exception. What do you believe is the most important issue facing MCPS today, and how do you plan to address it? Yoseph?
The most important issue facing MCPS today is the ongoing opioid epidemic. To put it simply, many students have been overdosing on opioids, and it's at a much higher rate than in previous years. And many students' lives have now been at risk because of this ongoing opioid epidemic. My solution for this public health crisis is to institute a task force of experts to find new, creative solutions to address this epidemic. All the time in our schools, we hear, don't do drugs and just say no. Newsflash, these solutions aren't working. What we need are new creative solutions. And one solution I plan to bring to the Board of Education is reinstituting drug counselors in MCPS. Professionals that are dedicated to working with students and working with communities with drug addictions and drug abuse in general. These professionals will also be 100% anonymous so students can feel safe with coming to these individuals. It's new solutions like these that we need to help save the lives of students.
Thank you, Yoseph. Sami?
I agree. The drug overdose crisis in MCPS is the most pressing issue we're facing today. To solve this, I would work to distribute Narcan completely free of charge to students and teachers, because this life-saving drug could be the difference between saving a life and not. I would also work to focus on rehabilitation instead of punishments for drug use. Far too long have we taken the approach of suspension for students that use drugs, but this does not solve the problem. I would instead want to focus on support, especially mental health support for students who do use drugs, to solve the problem at the root. In fact, I've already taken action towards this. I'm working with MCPS officials to actually present information on resources that students can utilize to help reduce drug use. Furthermore, I would want to change our drug curriculum to make it more realistic and teach about how to save someone's life during an overdose, as well as hand out fentanyl test strips to ensure that students know the difference between laced and real drugs.
Thank you to both candidates. We just discussed as the SMOB how you will be representing students, But in this role, not only do you represent students to the board, but you also represent the board to students. How do you plan to communicate with students across the county and keep everyone in the loop about the work of the Board of Education and the school system? We'll first hear from Sami.
As I touched upon earlier, I would have a new, innovative way of communicating information. Instead of just sending emails and newsletters to students where only ones with access to internet or technology can access them, I would present information in classes. Some ways I would do this is by bringing back the SMOB Monthly Minute. This was a great tradition that MCPS had that allowed all students to be informed, and I would work as hard as I could to bring it back on a monthly basis. Furthermore, I would utilize my SMOB Advisory Cabinet by making it the largest in history and have all the students that are involved in it report information at the meetings back to students at their schools. Through this, we can ensure that not only every single student is informed in classes of all the decisions being made in MCPS, but we can ensure that students are communicating this information to each other as well.
Thank you, Sami. Yoseph?
I agree. I think that the SMOB Minute should be reinstituted, but not only keep it monthly, but keeping it bi-weekly. That way, every single time the Board of Education meets, students can be informed. And these bi-weekly SMOB Minutes will be short to allow students to get nice condensed information. Aside from the SMOB Minute, I also plan on doing school visits. Because I know the SMOB Minute is important, but the one issue is that students aren't able to communicate their concerns with me, and I'm not as equipped to represent them on the Board of Education. With school visits, I will be going to every single school and ensuring that every single student is represented through my conversations with students and through involvement in their school culture. All in all, the SMOB Minute and school visits are necessary to make sure that all students feel represented on the Board of Education.
Thank you. Another one of your responsibilities as a member of the Board of Education is to work to build and eventually vote to pass a multi-billion-dollar operating budget. This year, the board has adopted a $3.2 billion operating budget with investments towards increasing staff pay, academic support for math and literacy, school safety, and equitable access to resources. What investments will you prioritize with next year's operating budget? Yoseph?
This year's proposed operating budget is one of the largest in history, and I think that it's incredible. It does a lot of great things, but now we need to expand on these great things. A few things that I have in mind are, first, expanding our world languages curriculum. Montgomery County Public Schools is incredibly diverse, and we have a load of languages in our county. And even in our newsletters, our websites, and all resources, we translate these resources into different languages. However, we don't teach these languages. If we want students to be better equipped into society and have these language skills, we need to expand the languages that we have in our county. I want to work with the American Council of the Teaching of Foreign Languages, otherwise known as ACFL, to expand our curriculums into languages. I also plan to invest more into ESOL programs, LFI, and SCB programs so that these students feel represented and have better support systems in our schools. I also plan on reallocating and redistributing the budget to ensure that funds go to schools that need them rather than schools that have the money. This way, there's not a lack of resources and disparities in our schools, and schools aren't crumbling.
Thank you. Sami?
When it comes to the budget, it is one of the largest, not only in the entire state, but in the entire country. I would prioritize a few things in my budget. One of them is infrastructure renovations for schools that actually need them. Far too long have a number of middle and high schools been falling apart and have not been addressed. I would target a lot of the county's funding towards renovating these schools. Furthermore, I'm an environmental advocate, and I would reflect that in our budget. I would want to fund composting programs in our school, fund getting all-electric, eco-friendly schools like the school I go to, Richard Montgomery, as well as other solutions to ensure that our schools are eco-friendly. I would also want to expand the amount of funding we get towards free SAT and ACT tutoring, as these services often cost thousands of dollars, and it's completely inequitable for students that can't afford them. By putting more money towards free SAT and ACT tutoring, we can ensure students are truly prepared for their future. Finally, I would put more money towards expanding more fresh and nutritious school lunches for all students.
Thank you to both candidates. I'll now ask each candidate about some of the pressing issues facing our schools today. For years, students in our county have faced disparities in educational opportunities based on the school they attend, socioeconomic status, race, and other factors. What solutions do you propose to address the opportunity gap? We'll begin with Sami.
As an Arab American student, I know how it feels to go underrepresented and ignored in a lot of our curriculums, our staff, and our leadership organizations. This is why I'd work to diversify our curriculum as well as diversify our staff. So we can not only have staff that look like us, but we can also have a curriculum that represents us. Furthermore, I'd work to expand course offerings and programs, especially into underfunded schools, so we can ensure that every single school has the same access to extracurricular opportunities as every other one. Furthermore, I would want to prioritize hosting more events in the DCC and NEC. This way, students in those areas can actually attend them and get the crucial information they need. Finally, I would work with members of student leadership organizations to make them more open and inclusive for all students. Far too long have certain schools or regions been overrepresented in student leadership organizations. And if we can make those more equitable, we can make every single policy that comes out of them more equitable as well.
Thank you. Yoseph?
As an NEC student, I have seen these disparities firsthand, and these are incredibly tragic to see. It really is true that where somebody lives currently in the county defines their education, and this has to stop. We have to take a few measures, and first expanding AP and IB course offerings into schools. This way all students can achieve at a high level. However, we also have to take great steps with our new boundary analysis that we have done in the county. Right now it's proven that there has been disparity in populations and race and in resources and in languages spoken at all these schools, and the county right now is segregated. What we need to do is we need a SMOB that can fix these issues. And as somebody being in the NEC, I see these issues every single day, and I see that our county is segregated, and I will work to fight it and stop it.
Thank you to both candidates. Since returning to our school buildings in 2021, we've seen a sharp increase in serious incidents, school violence, and other safety concerns. How do you plan to address school safety and create safe and welcoming environments in all MCPS schools? Yoseph?
The MCPS Board of Education is a body of government, and this body of government has incredible influence over other bodies of government in our state and in our country. MCPS being so large, our Board of Education has incredible influence in the state of Maryland and in the United States policy. What I want to do is I want to work with other school board members to ensure that we can put pressure on our systems of government to increase safety in our societies. One way I want to do this is to work with gun violence and work with people using guns and gun possession in general. I want our County Board of Education to put pressure and show that our students are being directly affected by the lack of gun control in this country. And I want to work with our Board of Education to ensure that we put that pressure on our mail-in systems to increase gun control. Because ultimately, the Board of Education can do so much. But now it's time to put pressure on other systems of government.
Thank you. I'll pass it off to Sami.
As a student at Richard Montgomery High School, I've seen the recent safety concerns we've seen in MCPS firsthand, whether it be guns on our campus or people who are not supposed to be in our buildings being in them. Though, what I always say is preventing instead of policing and prevention instead of suspension. We need to expand the use of restorative justice practices to ensure we're solving the problem at the root. We can't keep doing things like locking bathroom doors. That doesn't change anything. We need to truly work to solve these problems at their roots by providing mental health support for students. That way we can ensure these incidents will never happen again. Though, one of the biggest things that I want to pursue is to stop our schools from just saying there is no place for hate school and not taking any action. I want to host assemblies that teach students about hatred and bias in our county and how to avoid it. I also want to actually provide real and meaningful punishment towards students that are supporting hatred in our county. They have no place in MCPS, and if we're ever going to use punishments, it should be towards a student that are promoting an unsafe and poor environment for other students in our county.
Thank you. Here's our next question. Students across our county continue to face rampant challenges with mental health. Over the past few years, the Board of Education and school system have taken steps to support students, including increasing the number of psychologists, social workers, wellness centers, and other services in our schools. What additional steps do you propose we take in order to support the mental health and well-being of students? Sami.
Mental health is one of my top priority areas, and while we have put a lot of money towards increasing the amount of mental health support, students simply don't know about these opportunities and resources. I asked hundreds of students during my school visits one question, whether they knew the name of their school psychologist. Almost none were able to answer. This showed me that we need to utilize these resources by having in-class presentations that'll tell students about ways that they can receive mental health support. Furthermore, I want to introduce an innovative policy of workload relief. I want to have homework-free weekends, especially near the SAT and ACT for students, to relieve stress around work that they have that often causes mental health problems. I would also like to create monthly mental health days for students, in which they can take that entire day to themselves to catch up on any old work or just take time to do what they need to do. This way, we can ensure that students are not being stressed out from school and improve the mental health of all students in MCPS.
Thank you, Sami. Yoseph?
The county has taken great steps in providing for the mental health of all MCPS students, but now we have to go further on that. One very big issue is that students don't know who the counselors are, they don't know that there are wellness centers in their school, and they don't know about the vast amount of mental health resources that are there for students. I want to ensure that all students are aware through vast communication, through newsletters, through in-class presentations, and more methods of outreach. But another thing that we need to do is we need to expand the access of our school psychologists. Mental health is just as important as physical health, and mental health extends beyond the school hours. What we need are school psychologists that we can reach outside of school hours, including during breaks, weekends, and other non-instructional periods, to ensure that students' mental health lasts for beyond the school hours.
Thank you. It is critical that all students graduate equipped to pursue and thrive in diverse post-secondary options. What actions will you pursue to ensure that an MCPS education prepares students for college, career, and community? We'll begin with Yoseph.
Part of the opportunity gap is that low-income students, once they graduate schools, are left without the technology and resources needed to succeed at that higher level. I want to create a new program in our county where once students graduate, certain low-income students can qualify to keep their Chromebooks and keep their internet routers to ensure that they can succeed in the real world. Because today, in this new world of technology, you need these resources to be successful. And if we want to equip our MCPS students better for success, we need to ensure that they have the resources to do so. So expanding these resources and allowing them to be more accessible for all MCPS students would allow them to be successful outside of high school, and it's something that we should do right away.
Thank you. Next, let's hear from Sami.
If we're going to ensure every single student at MCPS is prepared for college and their careers, we need to innovate. First, I would want to introduce a number of new, diverse elective courses students can take that will be more specific to any career they want to pursue in the future. This will allow students to specifically focus on what they're interested in rather than just the core classes that everyone has to learn. Along with that, I would actually work to lower credit requirements. This would allow students to actually pursue the subjects and topics they're interested in and the ones that'll help them in the future, and not just the ones that they are required to take. Finally, I would completely revitalize our curriculum and make it more interactive, project-based, and discussion-based. This will ensure that students are developing those core skills that they need in their college and in their career in the future. By learning more and having more discussions in class and having more long-term projects where students can budget their time effectively, they will learn the necessary skills that are going to help them in the future, rather than just getting handed constant assignments to do every single day, which doesn't help with anything.
Thank you. With our final question, I'll ask each candidate about their thoughts on this position. If elected, you will serve as MCPS's 46th SMOB. With each year, the role has evolved and developed, reflecting new ways to represent students. How would you describe your role as a student member of the board, and how do you seek to innovate in the position? We'll begin with Sami.
The student member of the board should not be seen as one student representing 160,000. It should be one student enabling 160,000 students to represent themselves. I don't want just my ideas and thoughts to be considered at the Board of Education table. I want all of yours. And that's what makes me innovative, is that I would introduce surveys and polls that would directly show what every single student's thoughts are to the Board of Education. I would not just be another candidate that gets elected and is never heard from again. I would ensure that every single student is constantly knowing about all the updates at the Board of Education, every single thing I'm doing, and how to truly hear from every single person's perspective. That way, I can actually be the candidate that truly represents students, the candidate that truly innovates, and the candidate whose voice is not just heard for themselves, but is representing the voices of all students.
Thank you, Sami. We'll next hear from Yoseph.
If there's one thing that I want anybody and everyone in the county to see for my campaign and my term as SMOB, is that anybody and everyone can be SMOB. You don't have to be a part of a certain organization. You don't have to be from a certain area. SMOB is for anyone, and advocacy itself is for anyone. I plan to expand on leadership opportunities for all MCPS students and to innovate my position by bringing a new unique perspective. As an NEC student, I've really seen the disparities in our county. A lot of the time, students don't know how to advocate for the issues that are in their schools, and they don't know how to engage in leadership. I want to present new testifying opportunities to the Board of Education, work with student leaders and student organizations like MCR to allow them to be more equitable, and ultimately ensure that every single student in our county has a voice and is able to get involved. Because like I said again, SMOB isn't for the few, it's for all, and we should expand this position outside of what it is right now.
Thank you to both candidates. That's all the time we have for our discussion. We encourage schools to invite the candidates to visit their school and meet with students before the election on April 19th. Each candidate will now have an opportunity to provide a closing statement. Sami will speak first.
If I've learned one thing over the course of this campaign, it is that this election is not just about me, it is about all of you. What makes MCPS one of the best school systems in the country is the diverse, driven, and passionate students that populate it. If it weren't for all of you, I would not be speaking here today. Though, while MCPS does have its strengths, it also has its weaknesses too. Many of our schools are underfunded. Our curriculum is outdated. Students of color are underrepresented in our leadership organizations. We lack mental health support for students, and our school lunches are completely and utterly inadequate. In this time of uncertainty for MCPS, a time where many feel hopeless for our future, we need a leader to step up and create change. A leader with experience, a leader who currently works with board members and understands the system, a leader who has held multiple positions in their school to represent students, a leader who knows how to communicate, and most of all, a leader passionate about creating change. We as students have seen far too many empty promises go unfulfilled, though I can assure all of you that won't be the case with me as your SMOB, as I've already started making change right now. I promised to bring student taste-tested lunches to all students, and so I hosted a taste-testing event at my school. I promised to stop overdoses in our county, and so I partnered with MCPS officials to inform more students on resources they can utilize to reduce drug use. I promised to change our curriculums, so I met with the supervisor of health education to discuss ways to improve our health curriculum. And I promised to truly represent and listen to DCC and NEC students, so I visited every single DCC and NEC high school to hear your voices. So when you cast your ballot on the 19th, vote for experience, vote for change, vote for passion, and most of all, vote for the candidate that truly cares about you. Thank you.
Thank you, Sami. Now let's hear from Yoseph.
My parents left their lives behind in Ethiopia to provide me with the fortunate life and opportunities I have now. Their hardships and triumphs have encouraged me to fight for those same opportunities for all MCPS students. I've walked your hallways, spoken to your peers, and I've seen the advantages and disadvantages of your schools. More importantly, I understand the struggles of having teachers that don't reflect my identity, a poorly managed athletic field, and feeling like my voice isn't important or heard in MCPS. What you need is a SMOB that has experienced the inequalities of being in an underrepresented area and will ensure that no student goes underrepresented again. Almost 70 years after Brown versus Board of Education, our students still face issues of discrimination and equity and of being a product of de facto segregation. We must conceptualize a more effective way of providing resources and opportunities to all students in order to close the opportunity gap once and for all and bring equity to all of our schools. We must focus on the current needs of students. My job as your SMOB is to bring your words, ideas, and beliefs into reality. That's why it's important to prioritize your needs, and to do that, I will make my position your position as well. I will work to provide students mental health resources that they need by implementing asynchronous working days in each school schedule. I will work to fight for more inclusivity and resources for ESOL, LFI, and SCB students. I will work to hire drug counselors to combat the ongoing opioid epidemic. I will work to bring about equity in our schools and bring an end to the systematic inequalities in MCPS, because where you live or what you look like or the language that you speak should not define your education. I will work to bridge the gap between students and the SMOB and to keep the lines of communication open. But to do all of this, I need your help and support. My policy isn't limited to what I'm saying. However, it's continually growing to meet the needs of all MCPS students. When elected, I don't want to be a SMOB to student divide that we see so often, but instead I'll work every day to make sure that the students feel closer than ever to their SMOB. At the end of the day, SMOB isn't about me, it's about us. I simply seek to serve the needs of all 160,000 MCPS students and ensure that each voice and perspective is brought to the table. My name is Yoseph Zerihun, and I'm not just fighting for all, I'm fighting for you.
Thank you, Sami and Yoseph. In closing, please listen carefully to a statement from Ali Warmoth and Paris Yee, the Special Elections Administrators.
Hey everybody, my name is Paris Yee, and I'm a senior at Richard Montgomery High School and one of your Special Elections Administrators this year.
My name is Allie Warmouth. I'm a senior at Walt Whitman High School and the other Special Elections Administrator this year.
We lead what's called the Special Elections Committee, which is a group of students from across Montgomery County charged with organizing and running the entire SMOB election. On February 15th, we held our first in-person nomination convention since COVID that was attended by nearly 500 delegates from middle and high schools across the county. The diverse field of 12 candidates was narrowed down to our final 2 candidates.
One of our 2 finalists will be elected by students in grades 6 through 12 to serve on Montgomery County's Board of Education as a full voting member. The Montgomery County SMOB is only one of 2 SMOBs in the entire state of Maryland to have full voting rights, giving us a unique opportunity for student voice. Seniors like us also have the opportunity to vote and leave their legacy behind within MCPS.
This election has over 80,000 eligible voters, including outgoing seniors like me. It's very important that every student casts their vote in this process and has their voices heard. The Special Elections Committee has developed many resources for students to learn about these 2 candidates and allow for all students to make an informed vote.
Not only have you seen the candidates speak on this program, but each student will receive voter guides with candidate profiles. These include detailed information on both candidates to include their platform and their answers to a few questions about key issues. These voter guides will be emailed to your MCPS account along with Election Day reminders and a sample preview of the ballot.
On Election Day, you will open the electronic ballot that identifies each candidate and a summary of their platform and ideas on the voting screen. This year, the election will be held on Wednesday, April 19th, 2023. The ballot will open at 7:30 a.m. and close at 3:30 p.m. Thank you all so much for listening, and we can't wait to see you turn out to vote on April 19th.